So we got the latest Moody's Investor Services issuing latest credit rating action on Nigeria, affirming the country's B2 local and foreign currency issuer rating, but changes the country's outlook from negative to negative from stable. Moody's says the negative outlook reflects the country's increasing risks to its fiscal strength and external position. Where are the fault lines? In brief, extremely narrow revenue base, sluggish growth, preventing fiscal consolidation of the administration, risks that the federal government may resort to increasingly opaque and costly options to finance moderate but rising debt burden. Nigeria is asking for the balance of the $30 billion. $22 billion is the balance that President Buhari is asking the Senate to approve. The initial debt request was $30 billion, but that initial $8 billion was approved, leaving a balance of $22 billion US dollars. The capital flow Nigeria currently has is building on increasing reliance on foreign investors, which use to fund FX reserves. Moody's says Nigeria's fiscal financial strength, including its debt profile, has materially decreased. So the economic fundamentals, the strength, institutional framework, and governance have not materially changed. Over time, Moody's says there is the risk of social unrest given very low average income levels, high levels of poverty, and growing income inequalities. Moody's says the current policy mix, if it continues, will not help Nigeria at all. So let's ask Paul Alaje a few questions around this to raise the curtain on a very interesting week. Paul, good morning. Welcome to the program. On Monday, the World Bank releases Nigeria economic update, sounded a number of warnings, gave some advice on four key priority areas. 3 days after, Moody's is releasing this credit rating and a reversing or a cutback in Nigeria's or a change from stable to negative. What's your first word, your initial thoughts?
It's a week for President Buhari and his team, particularly his economic team. We have just received report on Monday saying that Nigeria, rather than reducing poverty figures might be increasing. Remember that June 12, President Buhari has spoken about his intention to reduce poverty by 100 million in 10 years, approximately 10 million people. Now, let's look at what job he's saying. When it comes to the issue of job, Nigeria has created 400,000 jobs, I think, in 2018. Meanwhile, we lost 700,000 jobs in 2017. Another number of jobs, about 4 million people have joined jobless markets. They are now searching for new jobs. According to this report, as if that were not enough, a major blow came from Moody's saying Nigeria has left stable. Stable gives confidence to investors because Moody's is an investor platform where people read reports before they invest in countries. That they've left stable economy to negative. Negative means you need to watch twice before you invest. This is going to be a huge challenge to monetary authority, particularly central bank, and also different markets we have in Nigeria. Recall that CBN has kept rate at 13.5%. But with Moody's report, I only hope that Nigeria is going to use what World Bank reported on Monday and had mentioned now we need major reform. This should be taken as a wake-up call, and authorities should take it seriously. It should not just be seen as Western report or organization report, but we should see it as something we need to do, we need to take meaningful steps about, particularly reforms about. One of the things, 3 things for me in Moody's report. Number one is lean revenue bag for government. And I think that when you look at this, if you look beyond national government, you look at subnational government, you see what they are paying in servicing, what they collect from FAC accounts, and also what we generate from internally generated revenue. You see, of the 36 states plus FCT, only 11 plus FCT is able to manage his book if the current trend continues for the next 2 to 3 years. So the books are really bad, particularly for subnational. Federal government is a big brother, even as saying he wants to borrow more money. Moody is saying if you borrow this money, how would you service it? Not what will be your debt to GDP. That has not been the argument. Economics believe in what we call necessary condition and sufficient condition. It is you have passed unnecessary condition by getting more facility but how would you service it? What would be debt? I mean, what would be revenue? The revenue to debt servicing to revenue ratio is maybe even worse than what we have right now. So it's a make-up call. We need to look at what. Lastly, is population growth versus economic growth. It is projected by World Bank, among other international institutions, even National Bureau of Statistics, saying Nigerian growth rate, from what we have seen mentioned by CBN and different authorities, different statistical body, 2.1%, and that may remain for 2020 and in fact, of course, 2021. If this remains, population growth rate average 2.6 to 2.7%. So let's go for the least 2.6%. You are going to have 0.5% gap in 2020 and in 2021.
Paul, very quickly.
It's a lot of worry. This is the time.
Paul, just a quick one. My apologies there. The report identifies poor public finance management. President Buhari's administration has spent the last 5 years since the erstwhile finance minister trying to rejig public finance, worked on TSA, what you call the Treasury Single Account, worked on what you call the ghost workers in the public service, drilled down into education institutions, including the ivory towers in terms of corrupt practices and JAM, the WAEC and whatever. But the poor public finances management is still an issue. So, do you think we haven't really been able to drill down a lot as would help us to get some of the things we need to get done right?
Yeah, truly speaking, I think when we want to use an analog analysis, I would say that government have done a lot in terms of reducing the number of animals that invade in our public finances, from snake to all manner of animals, monkey if you like, that have invaded our public finances by swallowing money and so on and so forth. But what we have recommended over the time is that for you to have an efficient public financial system is to automate it. For instance, when it comes to contract, etc., we still have issues of giving kickbacks to some percentage, 20, 30. These are realities that we have out there. Mr. President and his team cannot possibly study each of the contract issued by different parastatal ministry, and this applies also to state government. But if it is open, we know who is this person that have always been awarded contract, have all say 50 contracts awarded in a year or 70 contracts. Maybe a company is even getting 30. But if it is transparent, if people can know about it, one of the agencies of government, I think it's Railway Corporation or so, did a bidding, and several TV stations were there to cover it, made it live, so that it become transparent. We need to encourage transparency, even beyond TV stations coming. We might even need to put it online for people to see, so that we know who gets what is the qualification, what is the procedure. Again, in terms of revenue generation and also how revenue is spent, there are new energies which, of course, kudos to government in getting more money to, say, government vote. The question is on what will be priority, particularly government priority when it comes to spending. 2017 budget, 2018 budget, 2019 budget show that government intention, particularly federal government, is to spend 70% on recurrent expenditure and 30% on capital expenditure. That is even low. Of course, its percentage past one of the highest in recent time, but 30% itself is low. But guess what we have in 2020? 20% going to capital expenditure from 30% we have. What could account for, what is responsible for it? Payment of minimum wage, which of course you today, I wonder if all the states of the federation, our federal government have complied in terms of payment of minimum wage. So we have issues in our hands, and this is because of neglect of structured economy. We need to structure economy beyond the 5 brigade approach. As it happens, let's quickly take action. We need major reform. Structural transformation, major reform is what we need. We cannot wait to think or to plan. I have appealed to those in authority, particularly federal and state government, to please come together irrespective of political party. We are sitting on a very hot seat right now. Nigeria has just been rated negative from stable economy. It calls for a lot of alarm because potential investment will reduce. We can only wait to see what the report of foreign direct investment will be, because it will have huge impact. It may also impact MPC decision on NPR, because if they don't increase NPR to perhaps 14%, I'm afraid if lasts for a time, the next 2-3 MPC meeting may decide to increase so that we can retain investors even in Nigeria.
Paul, the most what I describe as alarming in Moody's report released late yesterday has to do with this paragraph that says, over time, there is risk of social unrest on the back of very low average income levels, high levels of poverty, and growing income inequalities. What I've been talking about sounds like big grammar. Now let's bring it down to the street. This is Moody's saying we have a risk over time of social unrest.
Now, clearly so. I'm happy you are in Lagos and I'm here in Abuja, outside of these big cities. If you want to travel between, say, from Lagos to Ibadan, for instance, and I can bet this with you, chances are that you will fear for kidnap. The same persons, if I'm traveling from Abuja, say I'm going to Kano or going to Kaduna, there are fears of kidnap. So insecurity, social unrest, people are displaced from Northeast, and not even Northeast, even some places in the South. People are displaced. So we have issue of security on one hand. We also have issues of huge social unrest in different parts of the country. All of these have lasted for a long period of time. And I need to put this to my statement. I am not saying this started last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. According to Moody's report, it's been what has been there over the years. And cumulative effect of all of these will not give people the kind of confidence to want to invest in our country. And they don't invest enough. Unfortunately, I'm yet to see one market that developed itself only by trading with itself and say, I want to practice full autarky. I've not seen one. Most countries, even story of China, people have told, have been very partial. Until China opened a market, it did not see the kind of miracle it's witnessing today. It is important for us to relax on policies that is trade restriction that may also put our country backward. And also, how do we begin to have this social contract that brings all of us together and see ourselves as one? How do we intentionally encourage private sector to create jobs for this youth unrest, particularly among young people? If you take statistics of those who perhaps perpetuate most of these actions and lead or several unrest around the country, age bracket would be 45 to 15 years old. These are young people, relatively young, upper limit and lower limit. What can we do to help them? And I hope that authority would help by considering those who can help at different levels solve some of these problems. Because if it continues, I'm afraid situation may get worse.
Olalaje, senior economist at SPM Professionals, thank you very much for weighing in on this conversation. It's going to be a very busy week. It's been very busy on the economic front. Tomorrow, we'll add to this conversation from another front. We're going to review one of the fiscal strategy paper for Nigeria 2020-2025. I'm sure you want to listen in on the show tomorrow morning. Thank you very much, Olalaje, for coming through on this to speak to us on this latest Moody's Investor Services report on Nigeria. Meantime, we've got a breaking news for you right now. It's going to be a very busy Thursday. The Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has fined Abia State former Governor Orji Uzor Kalu and 2 others guilty of 7.65 billion naira fraud. That's coming through this morning. This being a case, it's taken a couple of years in the making. Now, the Federal High Court in Lagos has found a former governor of Abia State, Orji Uzor Kalu, and 2 others guilty of a fraud amounting to 7.65 billion naira. Meantime, we're following very closely the report this morning of vandal of pipeline facilities leading to an explosion around Baroa area of Alimosho Uptown, Lagos here, and Limosho local government, Barua area. Early report says a number of people are dead. We cannot confirm the number of the dead at the moment, but I'm sure we'll have an update for you at the top of the hour. Those are some of the early images that we caught up this morning, an area where you have a number of pipelines belonging to the NNPC and its agencies carrying a number of petrol products, petrol, kerosene, and diesel as another hub for loading. And this is one area in which vandals continue to inflict what you call injury, if you want to put it that way, to inflict, to destroy pipelines belonging or facilities belonging to the NNPC. This latest one, early today, has resulted in a number of dead yet to be accounted for and the injured as well. That's the story. Barua area of Lagos State. You see the Lagos pipeline fire. Several Fed killed following activities of vandals on what you call illegal oil bunkering.